All
I
right,
don't think so.
we'll move on here. If you have any final comments, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them a little bit later on. But uh, Brock Boeser spoke to the media today. Well, not today, this week. So did Quinn Hughes. In terms of Quinn Hughes feeling, some of the highlights from what Hughes said is in terms of Chris Tanev, feeling that Chris Tanev is going to come back. Um, I Sorry, I don't see it the same way, Quinn, but I understand where you're coming from, and you're in the dressing room. You certainly probably know more than I do. But Brock Boeser, I think that this is, we'll start with Boeser maybe first, because this is such a fascinating, maybe a fascinating off season for Brock Boeser. Is if you've signed Tyler Toffoli and you're wanting to let defensemen, Brock Boeser is going to be a logical piece to move. Although, do you really want to do that to bring in a defenseman? So I guess now that we're in the off season, I'll start with Chris. Kind of, where are you at with Brock Boeser? Are you open to trading him if you were to get a defenseman, or is he part of the core of the Vancouver Canucks that you should not touch?
Well, like, he definitely is part of the core, but out of all those core pieces, the one that's going to be the most easily movable without freaking out the fan base, or I guess just disrupting the balance in the organization, I feel like Boeser is kind of the easy pick as far as someone that it would be the easiest to trade. Because, yeah, Hughes, Pedersen, Bo, Mark, and even Markey, like, I feel like they're untouchable as far as trading is concerned. Maybe I might take Markey back, but the other three definitely are, solidified, not moving, going to be Canucks for a long time. If you have the right trade proposal in front of you, I feel like Brock could potentially be moved.
Here's the deal with all these Boeser talks is the reason he's in there is he is the most attractive available player that can bring you back a significant piece. We all want Eriksson gone. We all want Sutter gone because of their contracts. Jay Beagle as well, in terms of contracts, is someone that a lot of people want moved out. We'll throw in Antoine Roussel and the unknowns of Michael Furland. Those are all the big names that are Jordy Ben as well. With $2 million is a significant enough cap hit that people are hoping that they can. And then the dead cap of Sven Berchi. Like, there's so many of those other ones, but they're not going to bring back a piece that's going to help your team next season. And the thing with the Canucks is, when you look at how things are setting up for them, this upcoming season is the last season that Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes are on their ELCs, and after that, they're good. Between the two of them, they're going to make $20 million. They're going to take up $20 million of the Canucks cap going into the 21-22 season. And that's fine. That they're worth it. That they are your two core pieces that you build around. Forget everyone else. Like, having Bo Horvat as captain is fantastic. Having Brock Boeser with them potentially fantastic, awesome. Having Demko or Markstrom as backstopping the Canucks for the foreseeable future, that's awesome. But the two players you're building around are those two, and so $20 million is fine, but that's still a significant amount of cap that they have to navigate around, and they need to be able to fill the rest of the roster. And what was the one area on the roster that we felt the Canucks have needed help on all season? The blue line. So how are they going to be able to improve that without giving up something of value? They have to get lucky. Yeah. They either have to give up not sign one of their big three free agents that everyone wants signed, or they're going to have to move one of their top end players to create the cap room and use them as assets to trade them. So that's the only reason he's in the trade rumors, is because he is the easiest player to move to bring back a significant piece to help improve this roster. Does moving Boeser actually help improve the roster? That's very debatable, though, and that is the debate. Is moving Brock Boeser for a defenseman worth it? We've seen it's such a hard trade to make. Like, let's go right back to the Oilers and the Taylor Hall for Adam Larson trade.
Mm-hmm.
That did not work out for them. So if you're going to make that trade, you have to get the right defenseman. Absolutely right defenseman. You can't have a good one who can maybe play good defense, but if he's not adding anything else, then there's an issue. So that's why there's so much angst in terms of how that trade could go down.
I think, to me, I guess I'm with Sean. I don't think that the Canucks are necessarily out to. They don't. It's not that they dislike Boeser. It's almost a sales chip, and it's a really. If you're going to do it, there's two difficulties with this. I mean, you need to make sure that you're signing to Foley. Obviously, that becomes, and in my opinion, is the number 2 priority for the Canucks. And then you also have the other issue, and is Jake Virtanen, and probably I'm not criticizing Travis. I'm not comparing him with Johnny Gaudreau, but maybe like Johnny Gaudreau, he certainly probably could at least use a change of scenery. I'm not sure with Jake Virtanen what that solution is, but he's certainly not going to get you the same value that Brock Boeser would. But if you're trading Boeser and you are going, and if you're losing Virtanen, you've got Toffoli on the right side, and that's pretty much it. And then you need to then make sure that you can find some forwards to fix that. It's a very difficult situation to pull off, I think. And to get that right defenseman. And it sounds to me they're looking at a right shot defenseman, because Matt Dumba was in there. Now Damon Severson is another name that has come up from New Jersey. So it is a very it's a tough trade for the Canucks to win trading Brock Boeser, in my mind.
I think it's tough for them to win trading anybody at this point here. Like, to me, there's a feeling of we got to get rid of people. Like that's kind of like almost a bit of a narrative that's coming through from what I can tell, and you got to be careful with that. Just making deals for the sake of making deals is not the way to run the organization, in my opinion. So, going back to what Sean was talking about, Boeser offers the best chance at a good return. I wanted to make the point earlier, if the Canucks were going to try and move Loui Eriksson, they may have to do something like the Leafs did and include a draft pick going the other way to actually make that deal happen. And if it's a second round, or heaven forbid a first round draft pick, kind of like the Patrick Marleau deal, can you imagine the poop storm that would be happening around the Canucks if that occurred? But that would clear a bunch of cap space. So there's something significant like that's going to have to happen if they're serious about contending next year. And the window is now. Again, as Sean pointed out, you've got those 2 young players on entry level contracts. Next year really is the time to make a move. Go for it.
Hold on, Tyler. Are you suggesting a sweetener?
You can use whatever terms you want to use, guys. Okay.
I got to make a voice for that.
It did cross my mind. I thought I might wow you guys with that, but.
I like the Damon Severson idea. I think they can get him for less than Brock Boeser too. I think that could be a landing spot for Jake Virtanen in terms of what they can get in terms of Virtanen and something else to get Severson, and I think that would be a really good ad. He's a BC boy. I think they do need to. As weird as it sounds, I do think they're going to need to bring someone in with some BC roots, because I don't think there's a good chance that they lose their 2 BC born and bred kids that have been very much embraced by the fan base in Virtanen and Stetcher this offseason. All comes down to how things shake out, right? So it would be nice to add that. They can't put too much stock in and weight in that, because that just you end up hurting yourself, like the Habs hurt themselves with always needing to have a French star or a French speaking coach or anything like that. So but Severson does check a lot of boxes for the Canucks if they can pick him up.
Yeah,
I have to say, I think Troy Stetter's going to be back for sure. I think
I'm kind of believing Stetcher will be back too. I don't.
It all comes down to what they do to change up this blue line, because they want. I firmly believe that they still want Tanev back, but they aren't having the discussions with him yet until they know what the rest of it looks like. Till they know whether or not they're bringing Toffoli back. Till they know whether or not they're bringing Markstrom back and what those numbers look like. He's unfortunately number 3 on their list, but he's still very important to that locker room and on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
You could, in theory, and this is just theory, and I was thinking about this week because I wrote an article on Evolution 1079 about this.
Good plug there.
You could wait and not bring back Tanev at the beginning of the season. You could wait until partially in if Tanev does not get a contract. I don't think you need to rush to get Tanev.
Like the other thing we're looking at is it's October 8th is the UFA start date. September 25th is when we're going to see buyouts happen, and I think we are going to see some buyouts, and a significant amount compared to other seasons, especially on the bigger teams where they know they can move. They've got a little bit more cash to work with to be able to do this. So, but yeah, I do think that it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. If you was it Rick Dollywell updated everyone on what he's been hearing. The Canucks are working hard with Markstrom and Toffoli right now, trying to figure out what they're looking at. And then once that happens, then and as well, I think what happens with when they can figure out what they can do with Eriksson, whether it is trade, buyout, or Barry. They'll be able to make a decision on Tanev and in result make a decision on Stetcher, because if they bring back Tanev and they bring back Stetcher, then they're going to how are they going to improve their blue line? They're going to have to add a significant left shot defenseman to play behind Edler and Hughes. It's a weird. It's going to be a very thing decision for them to make. Because I don't know what the right move is. Yes, you've got Hughes, who's the number 1 defenseman with the Bullets, but after him on the left side going forwards, you've got a whole bunch of question marks. You got Rathbone, who hasn't played professional hockey. You've got Hugh Levy, who's finally looking like a potential NHL defenseman, but has played 1 game. That's it.
Yeah.
And then on the right side, they're even more barren in terms of potential NHL defensemen. They've got Rafferty, who lit up the AHL last year, and then Jet Wu, who's turning pro this upcoming season. So you don't know what's going on. You don't really have an idea of what there. So either way, they shouldn't be, in my opinion, they shouldn't be locking themselves in on just acquiring a right shot defenseman. I think they could sign Tanev and Stetcher and then bring in another left shot. I don't think that should be thrown out the window as an idea. I think that'd be a great idea, and actually, in my opinion, I think it would work. I think it would be something that would make sense.
I think if Tanev hits the open market, there's going to be a lot of interest there. The way he performed in the playoffs this year was just awesome, and I'm sure there's interest out there. I kind of feel like it's going to be harder to bring back Tanev than it would be with Stetcher, who's just a restricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. So, but we'll see. If both Tanev and Stetcher are back, does the defense change at all, really? Because we've already had Jim Benning on record saying he thinks Olli Juolevi's ready to be an NHL defenseman. So come training camp next year, he's going to be pushing for a spot. Where does that leave anybody else, right? I mean, they're in with Edler for another year. They're in with Myers. There's only so many spots.
Exactly, and that's where I'm at. Is it what happens with Stetcher? Really, the term really comes down to what they do with Tanev. If they bring back Tanev, I think Stetcher becomes a trade chip. If they don't bring back Tanev, they're going to re-sign Stetcher, and he's going to play a more significant role. But they're still going to have to bring in someone else to help change up that blue line.
I have to agree in the sense that like Stetcher did play well this past season, and he proved that he could be a core piece. But it, like Sean suggested, it depends on how these dominoes fall.
And as much as I love Troy Stetcher, I always look at my top four defensemen and say, what is the extra thing that they bring? Tyler Myers, he's a decent puck mover, and his size makes a big difference. Edler's experience and being able to play all situations makes a difference. Quinn Hughes, we all know his skating and his hockey sense makes a difference. Chris Tanev is a absolute stud defensive defenseman, elite defensive defenseman, makes a difference. What does Troy Stetcher? Like, he works hard, he's a solid player, but I don't think he brings anything extra, and that's my only issue with him. I love him as a number 4, number 5 defenseman. But if they're gonna improve the defense, it's still not going to be Troy Stetcher playing significant top 4 minutes on the power play or on the penalty kill. It's going to be someone else.
I think
he's kind of missing that X factor.
Yeah, but I also don't know if we've seen the full development of Troy Stetcher yet. I don't know if he's necessary. I think he's about to find his legs. I think in the playoffs we certainly saw some more. We're seeing the growth of him. So I wouldn't although there's not a clear answer yet, I wouldn't say that there's nothing that keeps him out of there either. Except if you're acquiring a better piece, I think he's certainly possible. I wouldn't say that he's a 7-8. I certainly wouldn't mind him on my defense. I'll say that. I think he brings more than Jordy Ben.
Oh, he definitely brings more than Jordy Ben. He brings more than Fansenberg, but both of those defensemen are bottom pair defensemen.
Yeah,
he's the best bottom pair defenseman the Canucks have. There's nothing wrong with that. You need those players on a competitive team. On a cup contending team, Troy Stetcher is a number 5 defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that X factor is that he can bring though. He hasn't shown any flashes or anything. Like, he's solid, but he just doesn't bring anything like significantly good to the table. And I think that's and when I'm looking for a top 4 defenseman, that's what I look for. It's the same issue that I've had with Rasmus Anderson. I've seen a little bit more from him, but he still isn't showing anything that's an X factor for me to be a significant top 4, top pair defenseman. So
I disagree with you about Rasmus Anderson.
I know I'm lower on Anderson than Devin, you, and Heidi. I think that's because I'm a little more rational about it. I don't, but I'll not get into it that now. But in terms of Troy Stetcher, I just think that it's, like I said, he's a perfect number 5 defenseman. He can play up and down the lineup whenever needed, when needed. But to play 82 games or however long the season is, as in the top 4 role, you need to bring an X factor. You need to bring something to the table that's going to make a difference in the games more often than not. And that's not something that Troy has right now. I don't know what it could be.
Well, for me, what it could be is, more scoring. He has shown flashes of offensive brilliance there, but just not enough of it to really say, okay, God, what a must-have this guy is, right? Like, that's where.
And then his mistakes are glaring too, right? Like, that's the other thing, is when he makes a mistake, it's a noticeable mistake.
But that's defense for you. I mean, there's no D-man out there that doesn't mess one up once in a while. I mean, the mistakes show.
Yeah, and exactly. But in terms of, I love Troy Stetcher. I love what he brings to the team. And if we weren't in a salary cap era, he'd be a folk hero that would be on the Canucks for years and likely his career. But we're in a salary cap era, and you have to make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, even if it is fan favorites and all that, you have to make tough decisions. And that's where the Canucks are at. They've got a veteran defenseman who brings significant defensive prowess and very underrated smart passing to the ice and off ice leadership in Chris Tanev. But the questions are durability with all his injuries over the seasons. And then you've got a younger, smaller defenseman who's a solid skater, a solid defender, a solid this, solid that, but doesn't actually bring anything significant. If they bring back Troy Stetcher, he's still gonna start the season as your number 5 defenseman. Maybe he does pair with Edler again, but he's not going to get power play time, and he's not going to get penalty kill time, because that's not what that's not his role on this team. That's why he's the number 5 defenseman. Everyone looks at the pairs at the beginning of every game, and they go Edler, Stetcher, Hughes, Tanev, Vandenberg, Myers, Ben Myers, and they're like, oh, we're paying $6 million for a third pair defenseman. I'm like, well, no, because Myers gets power play time and Myers gets penalty kill time. Stetcher does not. Like, you have to look at all the other things, and as much as like I said, it's just. That's one of the big questions going and questions that needs to be answered, and big puzzle pieces that the Canucks need to figure out this offseason is how do they fix this blue line?
Just for completeness here, are we all in agreement that Oscar Vandenberg's not going to be back? He was under a 1-year contract, I believe.
Oh, I think someone will. I don't think he's a necessity on the Canucks. I think
all comes to, if they can move Jordy Ben out, and they want a veteran 6-7 defenseman to roll with potentially Hugh Levy. If they go with that, then he'll be back. But if not, then yeah, he's just a numbers casualty on the Canucks at that point, because
him and Ben would both be on a deep team, great 7th, 8th options, obviously, but how do you afford that?
Well, let me throw 3 names at you here, just see where you're at. Oh, by the way, Sean, that was your brother. He heard your comments about Rasmus Anderson. He said you're wrong. That's I don't know. Like, he added some effins in there too. So you guys can talk about that.
He also took offense to the rational part too.
Yeah, he took. Yeah. I think there was a FU or something about that. Tyson Barrie, where are you at with him? BC boy.
It depends on the price. Again, if they bring in Tyson Barrie, it's a very risky move in my opinion. If he comes in on like a 1 or 2 year deal, which I doubt, at a lower than market cap hit, you got to give him the shot, but I just don't think it with the cap hit and the term that he's going to want, he's going to fit in with the Canucks.
I don't see there being any room for him there with Hughes, Edler, and Myers, and taking up 3 of the spots. Kind of where do you fit Barrie in after that? It doesn't seem to be realistic. There'd have to be a fairly big shakeup there, a trade or something.
And that's the other thing, is he doesn't fit in. If you look at the way why he struggled so much in Toronto, is that he wasn't getting the top power play time. So unless the Canucks sign him and decide to go to a 3 forwards, 2 defense power play unit, because you're not taking Hughes off that unit, then I don't see why it makes sense for him to come to Vancouver, unless he's just literally coming here because he likes what the Canucks are doing and wants just to win a cup, and he's willing to take a lesser role. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what we call wishful thinking. Okay,
exactly,
like that just
that's
it's fun to dream that up, but it's how often does it happen? I mean, it's almost never, right?
Okay,
it just doesn't seem like a good fit.
Mark Borowiecki.
Ooh.
He to me he feels like another Jordy Ben, another Fantenberg, someone who plays well who play well on the bottom pair, not someone who's going to actually improve the defense enough for what the Canucks need.
Okay. Everyone on the
Agreed.
same page with Alan?
Well, I would just be amazed to see him not in an Ottawa Senators uniform.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini. Like he dated Gene Melnick. And then you could do like a comparison.
Oh.
Who was the better interview? No interest there. Huh?
Yeah, no.
Travis Hamonic.
Again, the Canucks have a better version of Hamonic in Tanev. So if you're going to bring back or bring in a defensive defenseman, it's got to be Tanev, in my opinion. I don't see why you would do like what the Canucks need someone who can move the puck better. So if you're not going to go away, just let Tanev walk to bring in a Hamonic who's going to make very similar money.
Yeah, again, doesn't seem like the greatest fit, especially if we are going to resign Tanev, which it definitely seems like they're at least making their due diligence attempt at it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll just wait to hear. Tyler, were you going to say something?
Well, the thing with Tanev is it's going to, like it always does, comes down to money and term, right? I mean, the Canucks would love to have him back. Tanev would love to be back. But there's only so far they can go before it becomes a really reckless signing. And, the Canucks it's well documented. They've made a few of those already. So,
and I think I do think another team is going to make a reckless attempt, and at Tanev, like I really do believe that. I know.
Yeah, the way he showcased himself here in this this summer hockey tournament bubble thing, and yeah, there'll be interest for sure.
Yeah,
the reckless will be the term there, Kev. Won't be the cap hit.
Yeah.
Okay, like this is incumbent on the fact that I'm going to precurse this that Markstrom is not back, so you have possibly room. But do you make a pitch for Alex Pietrangelo? I say yes, because I do think that would be a significant upgrade if you're not going to bring back Markstrom. But he might be out of the price range, but I certainly would not look at it.
You'd think ownership would really be keen on that idea, but
he's by far the best defenseman available on the market, and it's not even close. If there's a way to make it work cap wise, you make it happen.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
simple enough for you, Kev.
I mean, but I think it's what it does say to me though is there are some options that probably are better fits than others, and I think it's to me, I don't know, Tyler, we didn't hear your priorities, but for me, my priority is number one, Markstrom. I think you bring back Markstrom. I think you got to try to bring back Toffoli. I don't know how long you signed Toffoli for. That's my question. And then number three is Tanev. In my mind, I don't know where you're at with that, but if you're not bringing back Markstrom, I do think that there's a run for Pietrangelo in there for sure. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Markstrom's the top priority to figure out what they're doing there. I would say then it's Tanev after that. Just in terms of what he means to the organization on and off the ice, and that if they don't have him back, it's an enormous hole on their defense to fill. So then you got to figure out what you're doing there, and then whatever money you have left, you try to upgrade your forwards.
Actually, my take has kind of evolved over time. The more I think about it, the more I'm okay with letting Markstrom walk and to go aggressively after Toffoli, I think would be the most prudent thing for the Canucks. But that's just my opinion at this moment in time.
The one thing we haven't touched on in terms of Markstrom, is how is his structure. It sounds like he is willing to not have a no movement clause for at least the first season, to allow the Canucks the flexibility with the expansion draft. They don't have to protect him if say Demko plays out of his mind, and then he can go down to Seattle and play there and still get paid. I think he'd be totally fine with that. And I think that's something. If that's what they're working towards, that works, because I think one of the biggest issues with the Brodin signing for me was the handcuffing of who Minnesota needs to protect going into the expansion draft. Canucks got firsthand who the Wild lost in the expansion draft because of being handcuffed last time in Alex Tuck. They don't want to have that come bite them in the butt again, and so for the Canucks, that's a big thing going into it. They currently do not have any no movement clauses that are going to handcuff them, and I think they really want to make sure that they don't have anything like that going into whenever that expansion draft is next year.
And that's probably why it's taken this long, is because of all the intricacies of how they need to negotiate this contract.
Yeah.
And then then you've got the other wild card. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but then you possibly have Ben Bishop possibly going on the market. You have Marc-Andre Fleury that will probably be on the market, depending on where Dallas is at. If Dallas wins the cup, that's an interesting question what you do with Ben Bishop, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's talk buyouts. I have to be honest. I tried to read what Sean is trying to say, and I've been in school, and maybe my brain is still a little mush, and I'm missing something. But Sean is suggesting an idea about keeping Loui Eriksson for one more year. I'm going to let Sean talk this through, and we'll.
Okay, this is under the assumption that the Canucks cannot find a trade partner for Loui Eriksson. I think there might be a trade out there for him that might work. There are going to be teams that are going to be cash strapped, but still need to hit the lower ceiling of the cap. Looking at you, Arizona, potentially Ottawa, and others. Loui Eriksson only has $5 million left on his deal for the next 2 seasons. He was paid his signing bonus for this upcoming season already, which was $3 million. So he's only owed $1 million in salary for this upcoming season. And then he's got a $1 million signing bonus and a $3 million salary for his final year. So I think there might be a trade partner out there that might make it work. But if that's not there, then the Canucks need to look at other options to clear out cap space and roster spots. So Loui Eriksson makes his cap hit is $6 million. If you bury him in the minors, you're able to clear up $1.075 million in cap space. So buying him out this season doesn't make sense for cap reasons, because you end up with a longer you have to pay off the buyout in the equal amounts of years left after the contract is done. So he's going to have the Canucks will have to have a cap hit of basically $667,000 for 2 seasons after the 21-22 season if they were to buy him out in this off season.
Yeah.
And
that we're still paying Spooner out.
Yes. And the cap relief, his cap hit on this season would be 5.66 repeating $1 million, as opposed to 4.925, which is what it would be if they buried him. So buying him out this season makes no sense. Not only yes, you open up a little bit more cap room next year, but for this year when you're already cash strapped, and then you're adding more throughout the seasons, adding more seasons with some dead cap, I don't think makes sense for the Canucks at this point. So in a worst case scenario, you bury him in the minors or send him to Sweden or whatever, and his cap hit is $4.925 million, and then you buy him out next year and then if you can't find a trade partner, and his cap hit at that point would be $4 million as opposed to the 4.925. And then you only have 1 season of $1 million of dead cap space afterwards. So hopefully the Canucks can find a trade partner. But worst case scenario, it makes a lot more out of these scenarios. It makes more sense for the Canucks to suck it up with Loui Eriksson for one more season, and at worst case scenario, send him down to the minors and then buy him out after this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree.
Kev, as much as I agree with you on your promo for this podcast episode, after Sean explaining himself, I'm with Sean on that one.
Oh, I did that for promo work. That's I'm not
Just promotional purposes only, Chris.
Yeah, like you get people to listen to the damn podcast here.
And again, going back to talking about Pettersson and Hughes, that at that point, every nickel and dime is going to count. Is going to mean a lot to the Canucks. So the more cap space you open up, the better. So hopefully the Canucks can find a trade partner with to take Loui Eriksson off their hands, even if it is just to where they get part of his contract off or for this upcoming season, maybe even whatever. But if not, I think it looking at the numbers, in my opinion, I got into a big argument with someone on Twitter about it because they think it makes no sense to buy him out at all. I think it makes sense to buy him out after this upcoming season if they can't find a trade partner.
Okay, let me be the other GM here just for a second, and I just because I have the ability to do this. Why am I acquiring Loui Eriksson? What am I getting?
You're getting a good third line
salary. What am I actually getting in the player named Loui Eriksson?
You're getting a good third line player who you can put with a couple young players and get them a puck and he can do all the little things to help them be successful. If you look at, yes, he doesn't produce, but if you look, Travis Green was not afraid to play him on the second line with Bo Horvat and Tanner Pearson because he was able to win the puck battles in the neutral zone, make the small passes to get the puck to Bo Horvat or Tanner Pearson, and for them to allow them to create offense. He's not worth $6 million in cap, that's for sure, but you're still getting an NHL player. Now, remember, Kevin, this is coming with, sorry, Tyler, a sweetener. They're not trading Loui Eriksson for a 6th or 7th round pick.
No,
they're trading Loui Eriksson for like a 5th round pick and they're giving up a 2nd or 1st or whatever, right? They're going to have to give up a significant piece, or it could be one of the young players, could be a Stetcher, could be a Virtanen. Like, it's just, there's going to be a significant piece going with Eriksson in one of these trades if it happens. And you talked about it earlier.
He's at best a bit piece for a trade for me, but
Well, remember how many like is it Marian Hossa is a Arizona Coyote. They picked him up for the express reasoning to stay above the cap floor.
I just don't know if teams. I guess my question is are teams going to be doing that? Like, there's a part of me with the Marian Hossa situation. There wasn't a lot of PTOs being handed out. Because if the Canucks decide to buy out Eriksson, and I can bring Eriksson in on a PTO and see if he earns a spot.
But it's you're not thinking cap wise here. The old one that was it. I think it was Bob McKenzie. It wasn't Bob McKenzie. It was one of the insiders was talking. Pierre LeBrun. Pierre LeBrun was talking about, take a look at the players whose cap hits are higher than the cash they're owed. That is very valuable to some teams. Like some of the bigger trades that the Ottawa Senators have made in the past 2 years have had that piece in them. They've traded away lower cap hits for higher cap hits because the higher cap hits were owed less money.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Callahan is actually being paid by the Ottawa Senators right now.
I don't think Callahan is, but Gaborik.
Gaborik is. Callahan, I think, is being paid by Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
But
Read an article that said that. I'm going to see if I can pull that up.
But Ottawa has a few players whose contracts they were using to do that are up. So there might be a fit there for that specific reason. Benning has tried and he's continuing to try, but he's also released the hounds in terms of JP Barry and trying to use him as a negotiating tool as well now. So again, it's if you're looking specifically at the value of the player based off of his cap hit, it's not worth it. But if you're looking at for lower teams that are playing with a budget and not our cap teams and need to get above the cap floor, there might be a trade there for the Canucks to move his cap hit. Now again, I think they're either gonna have to give up a really significant young piece, or they're gonna have to bring cap back as well. So it's not an easy move to make, but I think there might be something there.
So to go back to Callahan real quick, I pull it up on his Wikipedia. With one season remaining on his initial 6-year deal, Callahan's contract was traded by the Lightning along with a 2020 5th-round pick to the Senators in exchange for Mike Condon and a 2020 6th-round pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, like there's stuff like that, exactly, where you actually end up getting less back, but you've gotten rid of cap. So again, I think there is a move, but if not, they have to look at the buyout route, I think.
Well, there's going to be the Oilers with James Neal, the Flames with Lucic. Although I think the Flames will want to bring Lucic back. I don't know.
The Flames aren't going to buy out Lucic.
What's that?
Flames aren't going to buy out Lucic,
No,
and I don't think the Oilers will buy out James Neal.
Just going through some of the names that were here. We got Andrew Ladd with the Islanders. I think that's another situation. There's going to be a few. Kyle Poso. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think the Flames are buying out Lucic. I think he's back for the year. I do wonder what the Oilers are going to do with Neal. That'll be an interesting one. There's a few other pieces, but I don't know. I'm not sold yet, but I could see where you're coming from.
Like I said, it's a tough trade. I think it's likely it doesn't happen, but if it does, that's the reason why they do it, is because they need the cap to go up to get up to the cap floor. You've got frugal owners who will quote unquote value a contract where the cap hit is higher than the actual cash owed. Like I said, Ericsson's owed $1 million for this season and $4 million for next, when his cap hit is $6 million.
Well, we should put that out as a poll question. I'll edit this out. People are out. Anything else on the Canucks that we need to talk about?
I just want to say I was really impressed with what Quinn Hughes had to say in his exit interview with the media. The confidence that kid has. It's not a cocky confidence. It's a quiet confidence, and I just love it. It's really nice to see him have that confidence after one season, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday when they announce the winners of the major awards, including the Calder, because I think it's going to be very close between Makar and Hughes coming down to the wire there with the vote.
And on that same note, I think Brock is handling, in his exit interview, he's handling all these trade rumors quite well.
Well, again, I think he understands it. It's like the Canucks aren't actually shopping him. They're listening, and if they get the right offer, it might happen, but I don't think they will.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, agree on those points. So the Stanley Cup final is on. We are a little bit over an hour into this podcast, and we haven't even talked about the Stanley Cup final. Where are you in the interest of this? Is this a final that you're going to go out of your way to watch? Or are you hockeyed out at this point?
I always tend to watch the Stanley Cup final regardless of teams that are in it. I just enjoy watching that intense level of playoff hockey. So I'll be watching it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching it. It's going to be an interesting matchup with the high-flying Lightning versus the shut 'em down Dallas Stars. Lightning just went through that with the playing against the Islanders, but I think that it's going to be even more interesting going against the Stars. And if Khudobin can continue to play as at the top of his game like he has, it's going to be a long series.
I was feeling a little hockeyed out, Kev, right after the Canucks were eliminated. I mean, it was such a condensed schedule there. I think it was like 5 games and 7 nights or something like that. So, just mentally it was very exhausting. I needed a little break from watching hockey. But now that the Stanley Cup Final's on, it's every couple of days. When time allows, I'll definitely be watching. There's nothing quite like the Stanley Cup Final. It's the peak of hockey intensity. Obviously a lot different this year being at a neutral site with no fans, but 2 very deserving teams that are in the final. And, I'd be fine with either result there, but I'm like most people, Rick Boeser, to see him lift the cup would be fantastic. Obviously, with his time in Vancouver, we all have a lot of respect for Rick Boeser. So that would be good. But then, John Cooper, he's been knocking at this door for a long time as well. And that would be a fun story there. And also, if Tampa were to win after touching the Prince of Wales trophy, that would be kind of fun as well. So should be a good Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that this will be closer than I don't know if I'll make a prediction, but I do think this will be longer than people think. I think the Lightning are not necessarily – I don't think the Lightning are coming in the more healthier team, and that feels like Dallas. I still don't know how Koboden does it, but he's gotten the job done. And I think that this is Victor Hedman versus Miro Heiskanen, and Miro Heiskanen, I think, is just going to be a fun watch. I know that we usually like forwards, but those are 2 of the better defensemen in the National Hockey League. I think it's hard pressed right now for me to not say Victor Hedman's probably not the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. I think it would hard to argue me off that ledge at this particular point in time, but I really like what Heiskanen brings. And then you have Joe Pavelski and Corey Perry, who have been around this before. You have a Tampa Bay team who has been knocking at this door for so long. And, the other BC side of this is John Cooper's from Prince George. And so I don't know. I'm absolutely going to be watching for sure. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and I know there's not very many asterisk people out there, but in terms of the legitimacy of whoever wins this cup, it should be noted that that's 2 teams that were not part of the qualifying round that are there. There's no 9 through 12 seed that got all the way to the Stanley Cup final. It's 2 strong teams that were strong before the pause that are competing for the cup now and looking for wins 13, 14, 15, and 16 here in this postseason.
And I think the other thing with the asterisk is there's been no break. This has been full-on intense, like we're back at it. We have a day off, but we're back at it again.
Yeah.
So, this.
Well, they're even doing it back-to-back Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, again, scheduling, of course, if the games are to be played in prime time, they can't have one on a Sunday. That competes with NBC Sunday Night Football, so that's one reason. And I think there is a U.S. presidential debate they are looking to schedule around as well. So that is a couple of reasons for the back-to-back games 4 and 5. What is it, Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday next week? Can't remember, but yeah. Or is it Thursday, Friday? Well, something like that later in the week.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, game 4 and 5.
Thank you. Friday, Saturday next week.
My one sad thing, and I know that he's loved out here, and I appreciate him, but my God, I really enjoyed Chris Cuthbert. I know there were times he stumbled through some things, but I'm going to miss him, and I wish he got the opportunity. I know he's going to probably get to call the Stanley Cup final next year, but it would have been so great to hear him this year, and I'm going to miss him, and I just for me, would have been a fresher voice to hear. And no disrespect to Jim Houston, I just think Chris Cuthbert deserved it. I'm sad it's not him.
Chris
They were
seems
never
to be able to bring the energy despite an empty building. That's the big thing.
They were never going to give Chris Cuthbert the cup final this year. It was always going to be Jim Houston. The reason Cuthbert signed on is that they probably promised him next year.
I agree with Sean's logic, but as far as the heart part of it, I'm with Kev, because like the fact that he was the guy calling the Edmonton stuff, and the fact that they're doing the Stanley Cup final in Edmonton, like it just would have been the nice button on, or the cherry on top, if you will.
But they're two of the best. Like, they're literally two of the best. Don't listen to Toronto Maple Leafs fans who whinge about Jim Houston because they got all upset about him getting excited about the 2011 run. Like, let's focus in on what is right, and that Houston and Cuthbert, they aren't perfect, but they're two of the best in calling hockey.
I'm not
and as far as trying to be perfect, I mean, these guys are used to, basically calling a series each round, following a couple of teams. I know when you're working for NBC or TSN, you're kind of jumping around a bit, but the amount of games and the amount of prep and the amount of stuff you got to remember the way it was earlier in the runs. I mean, even in the conference semifinals, the so-called second round, I mean, each of them were both covering two series in their entirety. So there's going to be some errors that happen, but I mean, can you outside of Gord Miller or John Forsland out of the U.S., just to name a couple, can you find a couple of better play-by-play guys? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I'm not. It's not that I don't like Jim Houston. I think that this comes down to style, and I just like Chris Cuthbert's. I'm more preferable to Chris Cuthbert's style over Jim Houston's, and that's not to dismay that I think he's biased or anything like that. I just would have loved to see Chris Cuthbert get that shot.
He's going to get it next year.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Okay.
Yeah, Chris wouldn't even want it under these circumstances. He'd want it under the normal circumstances.
Right, yeah. And I also
next season is going to be normal.
I'm also really starting to enjoy Loui. I enjoy Loui DeBrusk as a commentator when he's not calling Oilers games. I find him a little more objective, but when he's calling Oilers games, I think he wears his Oilers heart on his sleeve, which.
Yeah, I don't hear that. The main thing for me with Loui DeBrusk is that he doesn't bug me as a color commentator. Like, the insight can be a little thin at times, but he's not a color guy that's driving me nuts when I'm listening to the games. And a lot of the times you get color guys that you just want them to stop, where it's too much. And and that's not just the Pierre Maguires out there. There's others as well that just start to grate on you after a while. I remember going back to the West Coast Express days when Cuthbert was paired up with Greg Millen. He was driving everybody nuts as well when watching games. So Louis, the type of color commentator, while maybe not the most insightful, is sounds good, speaks well, doesn't drive you nuts as a viewer. So that's good. I'll take that any day.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
No. Other than the draft will soon be upon us.
Yeah. Yes, we
haven't talked about the draft, but that'll be something to start looking forward to.
We'll get into that in a couple weeks or so. We've got some other things going on. Lots going on. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
And there's Devin is GordHouse09 on Twitter. Heidi is Hyde Amazeballs on Twitter. And you can follow us podcast _hockey. And there's a comment, Tyler. Tyler, there is a question from Dennis Pierce who wants to know your predictions on the final.
Oh, hey, Junior. I'm gonna go with the Stars. I've just been so impressed with what they've been able to do in this postseason, and there's the old adage about defense wins championships, and it's hard to argue against the Stars in that regard. So, how many games? Oh, I think we're going 6 or 7, definitely here in this series, but I'll have to lean towards Dallas.
And if the Stars do pull it off, how can you not give the Conn Smythe to Heiskanen?
Well, Open's going to make a strong argument there.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'll eat my words in terms of the performance Khudobin's putting in, but Heiskanen's definitely impressed.
Yeah. I just hope Brayden Point can keep lighting it up. Otherwise, my hockey pool lead's going to dwindle.
I'm hoping for that to happen.
You're 14 points back, Chris.
But I'm still in the upper echelon.
He has a right to hope.
Yeah, well, story time here. The first this is the Pick and Duke playoff pool, and the first playoff pool I did with Steven and at the Pick and Duke, I was in third place for solidly third place for most of the playoffs, and one of their cooks, Reggie, this was the year that the Penguins and the Preds played in the final, and he had Matt Murray. And he was the only player that he had left, and he thought he was done. And because they called back the goal in game 1, and then in the clinching game they called back a goal and which gave the shutouts to Matt Murray in both those games, I ended up losing out on being in the money in that pool. So I am just hoping that I don't see a repeat of that this year. With all I've got left is Brayden Point, and I've got three teams, 3 people, including Chris, chasing me down with players still in there. So hoping that I can hang on and not get sniped at the end again.
I honestly feel this is a matchup that's going to work well for my team, though, because I happen to have 3 Stars and Kucherov.
Yeah, but one is Ben Bishop, Chris.
Fair.
Yeah,
But
Chris.
Radulov has been huge for me, and Seguin, while not being good at the start, has been pretty good in the back half of the playoffs.
Yeah, Chris really has Radulov and Seguin, and he's got Kucherov. So he's the one that I've got my eye on more than anything else. As long as Point continues to put up points when the Lightning win, I should still be good though. Hopefully.
Well, keep us updated. We'll kind of talk about how we'll cover the Stanley Cup. Maybe we'll talk off air, see what we'll do about that. But we've got everybody there. Story time has happened. Podcast_hockey. Subscribe. Like us on YouTube. Give us nice feedback. Thanks, everyone, especially Noble Nation, for jumping on. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Okay. Start here. 1, 2, 3. Hey, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible you could kill the YouTube stream? The podcast will start in approximately 1 minute.
I will.
I didn't check the numbers on that yet.
Not sure that we can shut down the YouTube here.
Oh, if Sean has the ability through the YouTube, that I think he could.
Yeah, I can. Like you hit end and everything on his deal for the next 2 years.
Here, I'll put stop live stream.
He was paid his
go.
signing bonus for this upcoming season already, which is $3 million. So he's only owed $1 million in salary for this upcoming season, and then he's got a $1 million signing.
I was about to say, where's that coming from? And we're still currently recording here on Zoom.
Oh, here, we'll stop that.